Hey guys, tonight we're time traveling to a place where everyone's sweaty, the walls drip with secrets, and you really don't want to drop the soap, the medieval public bathhouse. Picture this: you push open a creaky wooden door and are immediately smacked in the face by a wave of steam, garlic breath, and what might be centuries-old armpits. The air is thick, the floor is slippery, and everyone around you has absolutely no clothes on. Not even a strategic towel. Just a whole room full of medieval folks letting it all hang out while casually discussing the price of goat cheese and whether or not Jeffrey's mole looks suspicious. You've barely stepped in, and already a guy with a grey beard and suspiciously smooth elbows is whispering about his neighbour's mistress. A woman 3 tubs down is loudly wondering if Saint Sebastian was hot, and someone in the corner is muttering into a bucket about foot fungus and the Pope. Welcome to the warmest, wettest rumour mill in town, where people get clean on the outside and very messy on the inside. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I love seeing our little bathhouse crowd from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your wooden sandals clack against the wet floor as you shuffle in. There's a man in one corner humming a folk song and scrubbing his belly with something that looks suspiciously like moss. Over by the hot pool, 2 women are sharing what they claim is a love potion, but smells like vinegar onions and crushed disappointment. And then it begins, the gentle, juicy whispers. The gentle, juicy whispers that float just above the water like gossip-soaked bubbles ready to pop. You lower yourself into a communal tub, trying not to make a splash, because there's a delicate etiquette to sliding your bare bottom into centuries-old bathwater, already filled with several chatty strangers wearing nothing but confidence. One elderly man nods solemnly at you as you settle in, then immediately turns to the fellow beside him and starts whispering about how Lady Marjorie has been visiting the blacksmith far more often than her horses need shoeing. Across the steamy haze, a teenager is getting loudly scolded by his mother for trying to peek under the wooden divider that separates the warm pool from the slightly warmer pool. Because yes, the only thing dividing bathhouse sections is personal shame, and that's in short supply today. You glance to your right and realise you've been offered a wooden ladle of something called herbal broth for the soul, which tastes like hot salad water and regret. You nod politely and pretend to sip while trying to eavesdrop on the trio nearby, discussing the mayor's suspicious new haircut. One insists it's a political statement. Another claims it was the result of bathhouse scissors and 2 cups of mead. Historians still argue whether medieval grooming choices had deeper significance or were just tragic accidents involving sheep shears. Meanwhile, a group of grandmothers in the corner are engaged in what might be the most polite roast session in history. Oh, bless her heart, one coos sweetly. She's doing the best she can with that chin. Another sighs. Her stew's a bit thin, but so is her understanding of marital loyalty. You lean in closer, unable to help yourself. This is no ordinary bath. This is the town's heartbeat, its whisper network, its waterlogged Facebook group. It's where relationships are made broken and occasionally scrubbed clean with a bristle brush made from pig hair, which is ironically still more comfortable than the gossip flying around. Someone starts humming a tune, and within moments the whole left side of the bath is gently swaying and humming along. You're not entirely sure if it's a hymn or a tavern song, but the harmony is weirdly beautiful. A moment later, it breaks as a man leaps up shouting, "The soap is possessed," before slipping on an algae patch and flopping back into the water like an angry carp. Nobody flinches. It's just another Tuesday in the bathhouse. You turn slightly and are startled to find that an elderly woman has sidled next to you holding a strange root. She leans in conspiratorially and asks, "Have you seen this before?" You squint. It's either a vegetable or a very confused hedgehog. "Cures heartbreak," she whispers. "Also hiccups." Then she winks and glides away, leaving you unsure whether you've just been cursed or recruited into some kind of steamy herb cult. Back at the central pool, 2 merchants are comparing toe calluses and negotiating wool prices. They pause only to debate whether Geoffrey the innkeeper's wife is too friendly or just has very warm hands. It's unclear. Everyone agrees the stew's been better though. And then it happens, an old man with no teeth and too much confidence clears his throat and says, "You know, in my youth we didn't need lavender oils. We just rolled in mint leaves and hoped the goats approved." A beat of silence. Then laughter ripples through the bath, like ripples in the water. You laugh too, mostly, because the idea of being mint-approved by goats is now permanently lodged in your mind. Historians still debate whether public bathhouses were more about hygiene or community bonding. What's clear is that nobody here is in a rush to leave. Time stretches in the heat. The water prunes your fingers, and yet you stay drawn in by the shared warmth and the cosy chaos of whispered half-truths. And as the steam thickens, so do the stories. You hear murmurs of forbidden loves, bread recipes gone terribly wrong, and someone possibly seeing St. Bridget's face in a sponge. But that's nothing compared to what you overhear next, because what you overhear next is a hushed exchange between two women sitting beneath a leaky wooden beam, steam curling around them like plot twists. One leans in close and mutters, "She caught it from a goose, they say." The other gasps so hard she nearly swallows her own braid. "Not the goosepox," she whispers back. You blink. Goosepox? That's definitely not in the medical journals, but apparently it's very serious, highly feathered, and involves an herbal poultice made from wine-soaked lettuce. The details are foggy, much like the bathhouse, but the implication is clear. The woman being discussed might be contagious, cursed, or just the village scapegoose. Health concerns in this bathhouse walk a fine line between superstition and science. A man with precisely 3 teeth and exactly 0 personal boundaries is telling anyone who'll listen that rubbing garlic on your knees cures melancholia. No one believes him, yet several people discreetly pull garlic bulbs from their bath baskets. And yes, everyone here has a bath basket. It's the medieval equivalent of a gym bag, usually containing soap, a comb, a boiled cloth, and at least one item that probably shouldn't be that sticky. Next to you, 2 men are whispering about a woman's strange red splotches. One thinks it's love. The other suspects demonic possession. Both nod solemnly, like doctors of nonsense. Historians still argue whether bathhouse rumours shaped real medical practices or merely inspired some of the more creative uses of goat fat. Meanwhile, someone brings up the leper colony 2 towns over. The mood darkens slightly, but only until someone farts in the warm pool, and a serious theological debate is interrupted by snorts and a floating leaf. The bathhouse is not just for gossip, it's also for surveillance. If someone disappears for too long, if someone's toe hair looks suspiciously curly, or if someone's backside has healed too quickly from a fall, questions are asked, loudly, by a trio of aunties who've appointed themselves the unofficial Ministry of Health, Morality, and Moist Elbows. One of them corners you briefly. "You're new," she says, as if that's a crime. "Where do you sit during Mass?" You fumble an answer, and she sniffs. Back row energy. Then she smiles sweetly and hands you a lump of something that looks like soap, but smells like pickles. "For protection," she whispers, and walks away with the confidence of a woman who absolutely runs this damp domain. You begin to realise the bathhouse operates under its own strange ecosystem. There's a woman with a black veil who only soaks her feet and never speaks. A boy who trades bathwater stories for candied almonds. A man who insists the ghost of his grandmother told him to sit in this exact corner for 27 minutes every Wednesday. Somewhere behind you, a sharp whisper cuts through the air. She used pigeon grease. On her scalp, the horror, the innovation. And yet mixed with fear is fascination. Everyone leans closer. Pigeon grease might just be the next big thing. Give it a week and someone will be bottling it in corked jars and claiming it clears curses and dandruff. Whispers about illnesses and body oddities dominate the space between baths. One woman insists she sneezed during a full moon and woke up engaged. Another warns that washing your ears too thoroughly might attract demons or worse, marriage proposals. You nod along politely while trying to avoid eye contact with a man who's currently exfoliating with what appears to be a fish scale. You're not sure if it's working, but his skin now glistens with the intensity of someone who just lost a bet. Suddenly the door creaks open, A gust of cool air whooshes in, and everyone turns. A traveller enters soaked from rain, carrying a bundle. He's got road dust, mysterious eyes, and that look of a man who knows things, possibly herbs, possibly state secrets, possibly both. The whispers start before he even lowers himself into the pool. He's from the west, someone breathes. You can tell by his ankles, As he settles into the tub, people sidle up, one by one, asking questions. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. What's the weather like near the coast? Do sea people really have tails? Is it true that in Spain they boil figs in milk before eating them? He answers most of them with a shrug and a smile. But when someone asks if he's seen the ghost, who haunts the northern mountain bathhouses, his eyes narrow. Only her steam, he says, then closes his eyes. Everyone loses their minds. You try to sneak away unnoticed, but now the garlic knees guy is back. He offers you a clove just in case, then points at a woman with red cheeks and says, she's clearly got butter blood. You don't even ask. As the whispers swirl and the steam thickens, you start to wonder if you're catching something. Probably not a disease, but definitely a desire to never leave this place where bathwater runs warm and the stories never run dry. And as one rumour ends, another begins just across the bathhouse, where a heated discussion is bubbling, not about illness or scandal this time, but about elbows. Yes, elbows. Specifically, how well moisturised they are, how often they're scrubbed, and whether or not someone's elbows can be used to estimate their household income. Look at that shine, one woman murmurs, nodding at a merchant, soaking his arms across the pool. You could fry an egg on those things. That's money. You realise, to your slight horror, that in this bathhouse your elbows are public domain, exposed, judged, discussed. And not just elbows, knees, ankles, even the way you hold your sponge is fair game. You shift awkwardly and try to blend in. But it's no use. A pair of sisters sitting nearby are loudly debating whether scrubbing clockwise or counterclockwise attracts better luck with livestock. One insists that her goat started behaving better the moment she switched rotation. The other rolls her eyes and accuses her of confusing goat behaviour with marital tension. It escalates from gentle splashing to sponge slapping before an old man intervenes with a soothing chant and a handful of calming herbs, which may or may not be parsley. Bathhouses weren't just where people came to wash off dirt. They came to polish up their reputations. Everyone's watching, everyone's talking, and while nobody wears clothes, everyone wears 1,000 judgments. Over in the corner, a rather round man with an impressive moustache is offering bathing technique consultations. For 2 copper coins, he critiques your washing form and offers tips like more wrist or lean into the lather. He's somehow both ridiculous and wildly popular. A couple of giggling teenagers are taking his advice seriously, but mostly because they're trying to impress the daughter of the butcher, who's perched elegantly on a bench soaking only her feet and pretending not to listen. It's a well-known bathhouse strategy, strategic soaking, designed to appear effortlessly clean while exuding mystery. Historians still argue whether such behaviour counted as flirtation or passive-aggressive hygiene superiority. In the warmest pool, unofficially dubbed the fancy tub, local elites glide through the water like slightly wrinkled dolphins. You notice their soaps are different. Fancier, smellier. One has literal petals floating around her. Another is brushing her eyebrows with a twig dipped in lavender oil, claiming it wards off the frizz demons. Someone scoffs, but only behind her back. Because while the bathhouse encourages honesty, it discourages sudden confrontations, mainly because water is slippery and dignity is harder to recover when you're soaking wet. Then comes the ladle check. This is a weekly, highly informal, utterly unscientific moment where one person dramatically lifts their wooden ladle and critiques the transparency of the bathwater. Too cloudy, someone declares. Suspiciously murky, another agrees. One elder squints and says, it's just the healing minerals, then quietly adds, and possibly Gerald's foot powder. Cleanliness is communal here. Everyone adds something to the water, sometimes literally. There's a woman who tosses in rose petals like she's baptizing the bath with florals. Another sneaks in crushed mint leaves wrapped in linen. One particularly bold fellow drops a boiled onion in, claims it draws out toxins, and then eats it 2 minutes later. Nobody says anything. But someone whispers he eats onions like he's possessed. Even the kids get involved. One small boy, no clothes, and all confidence runs the length of the bath shouting, "My soap floats," as if it's a magical incantation. His mother, unbothered, just yells, "Don't lick the bench this time," without turning around. It's not just about cleaning bodies, it's about staging your life like a theatrical performance. Elbow glistening, check. Gossip deployed, check. Strategic sighing about the price of barley, check. You try to fit in by asking a nearby man if he thinks weather affects soap quality. He nods gravely and replies, "Rain makes the bubbles think." You decide not to follow up. At one point, a man with an overly enthusiastic beard announces he's invented perfumed steam. He begins waving herbs over a brazier and chanting something that sounds suspiciously like a shopping list. When the steam rises and smells vaguely of basil and regret, everyone claps politely, then moves away just in case. Historians still debate whether social climbing in the bathhouse was effective or merely theatrical. What's clear is that reputations rose and fell between buckets of hot water. You could come in smelling like goat and leave smelling like goat in denial, but if your posture was confident and your elbow grease sparkled, nobody dared question it. You watch as two women discuss dowries, one absent-mindedly exfoliating her shins with a seashell. Another woman listens in, eyes narrowing mentally, calculating if a pig and a half-acre of cabbage really qualifies as a fair trade for her cousin's hand. Somewhere, a man accidentally drops his sponge and lets out a quiet scream. It's the 5th time this week. You make a note to never borrow anything from him. And just when you think the social games couldn't get any more intense, someone utters the magic phrase. He bathed twice last week. The bathhouse falls silent. A goat bleats in the distance. Then softly someone says, "That's ambitious." Because in this world, too clean is just as suspicious as too dirty. And as you sink deeper into the water, trying to strike the perfect balance between casual cleanliness and mysterious aloofness, someone taps your shoulder. "You dropped your ladle." You didn't. But you know what this means. It's an invitation to join the next conversation. An invitation you accept with the enthusiasm of someone who may or may not be 12% prune-skinned at this point. You scoot closer to the source of the tap, a wiry woman with a sharp gaze and a towel that's clearly decorative. She nods once, a solemn gesture, then whispers, "We're discussing whether saints bathed." You blink. That's not the topic you expected, but you're in too deep now, literally and metaphorically. Well, someone across the tub begins swirling the water with theatrical flair. St. Cuthbert bathed once, on purpose, gasps, murmurs. One man clutches his sponge to his chest. It's true, the speaker continues. He scrubbed his toes before a holy pilgrimage. Used nettle water. Very itchy, very pious. A monk in training, you can tell by his haircut and the way he keeps apologizing for existing. Timidly raises a hand. Saint Radigan may have bathed often, for penance. Someone nearby chuckles. Well, nothing says spiritual purity like scraping barn grease off your shins. These bathhouse theologians are dead serious. They debate whether water counts as a blessing, if lemon balm can ward off sin, and whether demons can survive in a hot tub. The consensus, only if invited. It's not all speculation, though. There are rituals here. A man with an armful of fragrant leaves walks around, waving them gently over people's heads, while chanting something that rhymes with itchy. He claims it's for purification. He also tries to upsell blessed fennel bundles for an extra coin. Some people sprinkle rosemary into the water like it's bathhouse holy water. One woman insists she saw a vision of St. Bridget's big toe in the steam. Another claims the bubbles once spelled repent, but she admits it might have been an air pocket from someone's backside. As strange as it sounds, spiritual superstition runs thick in this place. You can't go more than 5 feet without hearing about a miracle that definitely, probably, maybe happened in a bath. Historians still argue whether public bathhouses were genuinely spiritual spaces or just where spirituality got really pruny. But the beliefs go beyond saints. There's also a healthy amount of magical nonsense. A hunched man Near the faucet, grumbles about witches turning bathwater into forgetfulness stew. He claims he bathed next to a woman, forgot his own name for 3 days, and when he remembered it, he was married. No one questions this. Nearby, a woman dabs oil on her wrists, while muttering incantations like smooth knees, smooth fate. She locks eyes with you, then wiggles her eyebrows and says, "Don't skip the ankles. That's where fate collects." You don't know what it means, but suddenly, your ankles feel very exposed. Then in the back corner where the steam hangs thickest, and the weirdest people tend to congregate, a small circle is whispering about bathhouse omens. 3 hiccups before entering doom, says one man while placing snail shells on the edge of the tub. If your sponge sinks without cause, someone's thinking about your elbows, adds a woman with a very intense stare. And of course the classic, if you smell apples but see no apples, that's ghost apples. Everyone nods knowingly. The bathhouse is where logic goes to take a nap wrapped in a damp towel. And yet, it works. People leave feeling lighter, calmer, slightly pickled sure but spiritually refreshed. There's also a quiet tradition of making offerings. A chunk of soap is left on a ledge for the bath spirits. Someone else tucks a cinnamon stick behind a tile. You watch a man carefully place a coin under a bucket and whisper, "For luck," or "better back hair," whichever comes first. Even your ladle gets blessed accidentally when someone sneezes directly on it while claiming to banish bad vibes. Mid-conversation, a woman asks you, "What do you pray for when you wash behind your ears?" You weren't aware that was a designated prayer zone, but you make something up involving sheep not getting lost. She nods solemnly, very noble, then offers you half a dried fig and a foot scrub. Things escalate briefly when someone insists that if the water ripples in the shape of a chicken, it's a sign of betrayal. A chicken-shaped ripple immediately forms because someone was bored and made it on purpose, and chaos ensues. Accusations fly. One woman clutches her husband's towel. Another screams, "You said I was your only parsley girl." Eventually the ripple is blamed on a phantom draft, and peace is restored by a man who recites a soothing poem about ducks. You marvel at how deep people's beliefs run. The bathhouse isn't just a cleaning station, it's a cauldron of culture, a soup of sacred nonsense. Where else could a floating basil leaf mean both good fortune and indigestion? And just as you're starting to relax again, someone leans over and whispers, "Last week someone saw a fairy in the rinse basin." You laugh, but then the lights flicker. Okay, it's just a candle. And you wonder, maybe fairies do use bathhouses. And as you ponder mythical creatures with spa routines, the conversation shifts to something even more unexpected confessions. You don't know what it is, maybe the steam, maybe the complete lack of clothes, maybe the eucalyptus. Someone snuck in, but suddenly everyone is feeling very chatty. Deeply, awkwardly, emotionally chatty. You're floating there, minding your own ladle, when a man next to you sighs and says, "I once cried into a turnip." He stares ahead, water dripping from his moustache. It didn't help. You nod slowly. "I can see that." He nods back. "Thank you." Across the tub, a young woman is whispering a love poem to the bubbles, claiming it was written for a stable boy who smelled like hay and betrayal. The bubbles don't respond, but a few sympathetic hums float up from the warm pool. It turns out the bathhouse is the medieval equivalent of group therapy, except everyone's wet and no one's licensed. People begin opening up like damp journals. One by one they share their deepest secrets, usually in hushed voices, often while exfoliating. A baker admits he sometimes burns bread on purpose just to feel something. A nun or a very good actress confesses that she tried to marry a goat once, but only legally. "He had good posture," she adds, as if that explains everything. Someone declares, "I hate soup," and 3 people audibly gasp. A merchant wipes soap from his eyes and says, "My wife thinks I'm away on business, but I'm actually just hiding in the bathhouse because I forgot our anniversary." He then sinks lower into the water like a guilty loaf of bread. Even the bathhouse staff get in on it. The towel boy, who is at least 12 and suspiciously wise, mutters, "They think I'm just folding linens, but I know everyone's secrets." He says this while aggressively wringing out a rag that may or may not contain blackmail-worthy information. And you, of course, get swept into it. Someone notices your contemplative expression and asks, "What do you carry in your soul bucket?" You panic. What do you say? That you once lied about liking turnip pie, that you secretly prefer dry sponges, that you have no idea what a soul bucket is. Instead, you say, I sometimes bathe twice a week. The bathhouse falls silent. Then a slow, impressed nod from an elderly woman, bold. The tension breaks. Historians still argue whether bathhouses served as emotional outlets or just inspired people to invent therapy centuries early. Either way, this tub is now an unlicensed confession booth, and it's working. A man with a large nose and an even larger loofah sighs. Sometimes I just come here to hear someone say my name. Immediately, half the pool chants Reginald. He weeps softly into a lavender-scented towel. Meanwhile, a few ambitious bath-goers are forming a whisper circle, a sacred space where the rule is no judgment, just light mockery. Inside the circle, people admit to things like re-gifting a turnip wreath, pretending to know Latin to impress clergy, and once sneezing on a bishop. There's laughter. There's gentle heckling. There's a woman crocheting something vaguely hat-shaped out of bath hair and whispering, "This is how I cope." You overhear one man whispering to his reflection in the water, "You're doing fine. You remembered to wash both ears today. That's growth." There's a sort of magic in it. Steam curls around faces like smoky hugs. The echoes of whispered regrets and reluctant giggles bounce off stone walls like lullabies for the soul. The water isn't just warm, it's welcoming. And just when you think you've heard it all, the bucket boy drops a wooden pail beside you and deadpans. This one cried because he stepped on a mushroom. You glance over. The man next to you shrugs. It was friendly. Even the most stoic bath-goers can't help but soften. The grumpy woman who's been muttering about taxes for half an hour finally smiles when someone passes her a chamomile stuffed sponge for emotional support. You feel it too, a weird, cozy sense of belonging. Like you're part of some very moist, very weird family. A family that shares exfoliants and confessions with equal care. And as the whispers fade into contented sighs, a new voice cuts through the steam. Did I ever tell you how my uncle negotiated a city treaty while wearing nothing but a fig leaf? The next wave of whispers begins before the fig leaf finishes falling from the storyteller's hand. And just like that, diplomacy has entered the tub. The storyteller. A lanky man with theatrical eyebrows and an uncanny ability to balance soap on his shoulder launches into the tale of the fig leaf treaty. According to him, it involved two rival cities, a goose that interrupted negotiations by honking at precisely the wrong moment, and an uncle whose modesty was upheld by sheer willpower and one stubborn leaf. The bathhouse erupts in laughter. Someone snorts. Someone else coughs on rosemary steam. One man looks around like he's just realised diplomacy might be his true calling, as long as it's practiced exclusively in warm water and with minimal fabric. This, you learn, is entirely normal. Welcome to Scrub-a-Dub Diplomacy, where treaties are proposed, mid-sponge alliances forged between buckets, and political marriages discussed while someone picks leaves out of their armpit. One woman, clearly of high status based on the sheer number of petals floating around her, is deep in negotiation over a land dispute. Her opponent, a fishmonger, who insists the disputed border is where the trout start to taste funny. They go back and forth, splashing gently, until a third party mediates with the help of a boiled egg and a sea chanty. A tentative agreement is reached. The egg is eaten, peace reigns. Another trio, older men with scrolls and very serious foreheads, discuss tax policy while exfoliating their calves. If we tax fish differently by size, one proposes we could fund another towel hook for the east wall. They nod solemnly. It's the most productive conversation happening in town today. And not all negotiations are so formal. A teenage boy is whispering nervously to a girl soaking near the rinse basin. His proposal, that she attend his family's upcoming pig boil. She counters with, "Only if you bring spice plums." It's a deal. Witnessed by 4 eavesdropping grandmothers and 1 goat who may or may not be emotional support livestock. You begin to realise that power in the bathhouse isn't about robes or rings. It's about how calmly you can float while delivering devastatingly polite threats. A merchant reclining like a sea cucumber gently informs a competitor that if prices don't stabilise, his delivery carts might experience mysterious wheel misfortune. It's said with a smile, bubbles drifting around him. His rival blinks once, then nods. Of course, let us not anger the tub spirits. Historians still debate whether bathhouse politics held real sway or were simply very elaborate warm water fan fiction. But there's no denying decisions are made here. Big ones. Ones that shape village festivals, grain trades, and who gets the last ladle of pine-infused rinse water. At one point, a delegation arrives from the next village over. You can tell because they wear matching sandals and carry unusually well-crafted loofahs. They immediately set up in the central pool, declare their arrival with a synchronized splash, and begin whispering about cross-bathhouse collaborations. People crowd around. There's talk of a joint soap market, of bath games, even of organising a towel relay race for spring. Spirits are high until someone mentions that last time someone cheated by waxing their feet and slipping faster. A murmur of disapproval ripples through the pool. Suddenly the tension is palpable. Someone drops a sponge, the rosemary steam thickens. Then the bucket boy breaks the silence with, "Want me to judge the rematch?" And just like that, the mood lightens. The bucket boy has spoken. His judgment, as always, is respected, mostly because he knows who owes whose soap. You watch as alliances shift like bath bubbles. People swap stories, trade salts, and casually threaten to withhold plum preserves. Two older women seal a minor land deal by sharing a sugar scrub and singing a lullaby in unison. One man nods approvingly from the corner, saying, "That's how we used to do it in my day." None of this dry scroll nonsense. A monk who's been quietly soaking with the air of someone silently judging everyone finally speaks up. "In my monastery, we negotiate with silence. Someone immediately dunks a sponge on his head. Then keep practicing," they say. You snort, then quickly try to cover it with a fake sneeze. No one's fooled. You're one of them now. Bathhouse politics aren't limited to deals and disputes. There are subtler games too, where you sit in the tub, how you rinse your hair. Whether you bring your own pumice stone or borrow someone else's with dignity. These are power plays, unspoken, moist. You even witness a full-blown apology ceremony. A man wronged another by inadvertently using his heirloom soap and now offers a peace offering, a candle shaped like a duck. There is much bowing. The candle is accepted, harmony is restored. As steam rises and elbows wrinkle, it becomes clear this place is the real seat of power. Forget thrones and sceptres. Here influence is measured in ladle sharing and bubble diplomacy. And just when the politics reach a simmer, someone appears with a mysterious potion, claiming it increases charm, reduces foot odour, and makes your cousin forgive you for stealing their goat cart. Which of course leads the conversation towards something even slipperier than politics. Something far slipperier than politics, potions, lotions, and all the mysterious goo people are rubbing on each other with alarming confidence. You barely notice it at first, a glisten here, a shimmer there, until you realise the bathhouse has transformed into a medieval spa meet street market situation, where every third person is offering some sort of bottled miracle. And by bottled we mean stored in everything, from hollowed turnips to repurposed eggshells. Sanitation is a polite suggestion, at best. A rotund woman with 9 rings on one hand and a suspiciously glowing forehead approaches you. "You look spiritually crusty," she says, handing you a jar. "Rub this behind your ears and under your worries." You open it. It smells like boiled daisies and mild regret. "What is it?" She leans in. Confidence, then vanishes into the steam. You glance at the jar, shrug, and cautiously dab a bit behind your left ear. Immediately, a passing towel or boy calls you bold. Coincidence, perhaps, but now you kind of want the full set. All around you, trade is booming. Someone's peddling romance-enhancing elbow cream. Another bath-goer is shouting about foot paste with aphrodisiac undertones. You didn't even know feet had romantic potential, but here we are. And let's not forget the most popular vendor of the day. A man in a floppy hat with a cart full of oils, labelled things like Serenity Slime Tingle Brew and mildly bewitching gel for troubled chins. He offers samples on seaweed leaves and insists this one's endorsed by 3 goats and a very grateful widow. The whispers are swirling. "Did you hear about Greta used the fig balm? Married within a week fig balm." "Yes, from the man with the mole, shaped like a compass." Ooh. Historians still argue whether these potions had any actual effect or if everyone was just tipsy on fermented bathwater. What's undeniable is how committed these bathgoers are to the placebo lifestyle. You spot a young man applying something that smells strongly of mint and vengeance to his scalp. To attract intelligent conversation, he explains. Two people immediately begin debating cabbage taxes next to him. He beams. And then there's the lady with the tray. You don't know her name. No one does, but she glides through the bathhouse like a herbal ghost, her tray balanced perfectly, on one hand stacked with clinking jars, dried flowers, and mysterious roots that look like they once had opinions. She doesn't speak. She only raises one eyebrow at you, tilts the tray slightly, and lets you pick. You choose a small sachet that smells like apples and old libraries. She nods once vanishes into the mist. You later discover it's dream dust meant to induce visions of your future spouse or possibly just make your dreams smell better. Meanwhile, the potion crowd gets bold. Someone starts doing aura mists where they throw scented water into the air and interpret your personality based on how the droplets land. Yours land mostly on your shoulder. Ah, the woman says, nodding wisely, a thinker. Also maybe a left-handed baker. A group of older bathhouse regulars watch this with amused tolerance. Back in our day, one grumbles we just sniffed lavender and hoped for the best. Another mutters I once used goose grease to charm a blacksmith. We've all done things we're not proud of. Still, even they can't resist. One elderly man cautiously applies a tiny dab of wrinkle whisperer under his eyes and is immediately told he looks emotionally youthful. He doesn't smile, but you swear he sits a little taller. Then the love potions start circulating. Oh no, someone murmurs, it's fig season. Sure enough, out comes a vial of fig elixir, said to guarantee the next person you touch will fall in love, or at least think you smell like dessert. A woman dips her finger and taps a stranger on the nose and says, "Oops." They're now holding hands and giggling over shared disappointment in medieval oatmeal. Some mixtures are less romantic and more practical. You witness a heated debate over whether cow thyme salve works better than onion root paste for soothing hot tub toes. A duel almost breaks out, but is settled via a sniff test, judged by a monk with a deviated septum. There's even a cursed lotion being passed around. Supposedly, if you apply it to your knees, someone from your past will appear physically or emotionally. A man dabs some on and immediately remembers he left his dog outside. He runs off mid-sentence. The potion wins. And you're trying to keep a low profile, but a vendor shuffles up to you with a wide grin and whispers, "I see in your pores potential." He hands you something green and chunky. "Try this, made with envy and cucumber." You back away slowly, muttering something about allergies. In all this glorious nonsense, one truth remains: everyone believes just a little. Whether it's in rose oil, fake rosemary for clarity, or simply the healing power of a well-timed foot soak. And as you soak your newly scented self in a corner tub, watching potions pass hands and dreams pass lips, someone beside you leans in and says, "You ever hear the one about the knight who accidentally got engaged in here?" Which of course leads you into the realm of jokes, riddles and bathhouse banter. Banter that bubbles up as effortlessly as the bath water and just as warm. It starts with a riddle. A man with eyebrows like woolly caterpillars leans over and says, "What has no soap, no shame, and still gets rubbed daily?" You panic slightly, fearing the worst, but he laughs and says, "This bench." Everyone around you chuckles. A woman sighs, "Oh, that one again," while still smiling and rubbing lavender oil into her elbows. You quickly realize that humor is the secret language of the bathhouse. The steamy glue holding this soapy society together. If the bath is the town's conscience, jokes are how it stays sane. Bathhouse jokes are their own genre, always warm, occasionally slippery, and usually making at least one person blush. They're told in hushed tones with twinkles in the eye and steam in the beard. Take, for example, the classic, "Why don't monks bathe with bakers? Because one needs too much and the other needs too little." It gets a groan, of course, but the kind followed by giggles and a ripple of bubbles from someone laughing too hard under the water. Humour here isn't just entertainment, it's currency. You might not have the fanciest soap, but if you can make the towel boys snort, you're golden. That's basically royalty in this environment. There's even a legend whispered around the deeper pool, the laugh splash. Supposedly, if you make someone laugh hard enough that they splash water out of the tub, The bath spirits grant you 3 days of smooth skin and one mildly favourable coincidence. A woman once claimed she laughed so hard she got engaged and found a duck egg in her shoe, both unrelated but clearly magical. Even the local healer gets in on the fun. Between diagnosing someone's rash as sentimental freckles and suggesting chamomile tea applied directly to your patients, she delivers dry scolding one-liners that leave entire tubs in stitches. Your aura looks tired, she tells a man, applying onion paste to his temples, like a turnip that's been emotionally ghosted. The jokes go from sly to silly to borderline surreal. Why did the knight refuse to bathe? Because he heard armour doesn't come off in warm water without a witness. People laugh so hard someone drops a bar of soap which skids across the wet tiles and causes a dramatic but ultimately gentle collision between two strangers. One of them immediately asks, "Is this how destiny smells?" Then come the songs. Oh yes, bathhouse songs are a thing. They're usually simple tunes about things like soap theft, lost towels, or unrequited sponge love. One popular verse goes, "He brought no scrub, he brought no balm, he borrowed mine with sweaty calm. He rinsed his knees, ignored his toes, then left before the bucket froze." Everyone sings along, even the bucket boy. But not all humour is verbal. Some of it is performance art, like the man who reenacts historical moments using only bath tools. Today he's King Arthur meets exfoliation. His sword, a particularly stiff loofah. His crown, a ring of soggy herbs. His performance award-worthy. His bathrobe missing. There's a woman who can impersonate every regular bathhouse visitor with uncanny accuracy. Her rendition of Old Man Who Forgets Which Tub He Entered wins rapturous applause and a complimentary foot scrub. Historians still argue whether this kind of humour was a cultural norm or just the inevitable result of mixing warm water with idle villagers and a mild lack of supervision. But one thing is clear, laughter is the great equaliser. Nobles giggle with farmers. Fishmongers share puns with scribes. Even the monks eventually crack a grin. One of them tries a joke. Why don't scrolls like getting wet? Because then their secrets run and is immediately doused with a ceremonial splash of forgiveness water. You find yourself relaxing more, laughing more, even throwing in a joke or two of your own. They're not great. One involves a turnip and a marriage proposal and somehow gets a pity chuckle. But that's all it takes. You're in. And just when you think the mirth can't escalate further, someone shouts, "Impromptu bathhouse riddle-off." Buckets are banged, steam is cleared, a crowd gathers. The rules are simple: answer or get splashed. Alive without breath. Cold as death. Never thirsty. Always drinking. What is it? A whisper ripples through the group fish. Correct. The crowd exhales, no splash. Next! I come with a hiss. My grip is tight. Hold me too long. You'll lose the fight. The answer, it turns out, is eels. Someone guesses mother-in-law gets it wrong and receives a ladleful of justice. It's joyous. It's utterly ridiculous. It's possibly the most fun you've had in your life, wearing no clothes in a room full of strangers. As the riddle-off winds down and the laughter fades into satisfied sighs, someone leans close and says, "You're funny. You should come to the night soak." You blink. The what? She winks. The quietest, strangest, most secret part of the bathhouse. And just like that, you're in for a new kind of whisper, a whisper that carries you to the edges of steam and stillness, the night soak. By day, the bathhouse hums with life, voices, splashes, the occasional yelp when someone sits on a sponge that had intentions. But at night, it transforms. As the oil lamps are dimmed and the last rowdy scrubber stumbles out, humming something about buttered eels, only a few remain. They are the keepers of secrets, the late-night lingerers, the stealth bathers. And tonight, you're among them. The woman who invited you now, cloaked in a towel that probably predates feudalism, beckons silently. You follow her past the main pools through a corridor, scented with thyme and yesterday's soup, until you reach a smaller chamber, the quiet tub. Here the water is hotter, the steam denser, and the silence so complete. You can hear your own pores opening in confusion. Only a handful of people are here, all soaking in total calm, like vegetables politely awaiting stew time. No one's talking, no one's splashing. Even the steam rises politely, like it doesn't want to interrupt anyone's inner journey. You slip in, trying not to squeak. After a few minutes of silent bubbling and self-conscious toe wiggling, you realise this isn't just quiet for quiet's sake. This is intentional quiet. This is the quiet of contemplation, of meditation, of deeply personal and occasionally nosy observation. You glance to your left. A woman with a face like a wise walnut is mouthing what looks like a spell. To your right, a man is slowly brushing his forearms with a dried fig leaf. Why you dare not ask, the rules of the night soak are unspoken but ironclad. No loud breathing, no questions, no judging the fig. That doesn't stop you from whispering to yourself, this is the strangest group hot tub I've ever joined. The steam gurgles in agreement. In the corner, a monk sits in lotus position, eyes closed, exuding so much serenity that you half expect him to levitate. Next to him, a very small nun is building a tiny boat out of soap slivers. Every so often, she launches one into the tub and whispers, "May your burdens float away." Someone claps silently. And there at the edge of the pool is the stealthy crew. These are the people who shouldn't be here, not because it's forbidden, but because their daytime personas simply do not permit such relaxation. That stern town guard, he's soaking his feet and quietly humming a lullaby. The apothecary who once scolded a goat for breathing near his herbs, he's letting his hair down, which, by the way, is surprisingly luxurious. Even the local priest appears, robes exchanged for nothing but a thin towel and a distant stare. He mumbles something about purifying the soul's calluses and dunks his head. Repeatedly. Historians still argue whether night soaks were acts of quiet rebellion or just excellent excuses to avoid family dinner. One woman floats so serenely that someone nudges her, whispering, "Are you astral projecting again?" She blinks once, smiles and replies, "Just visiting Constantinople in my mind." A respectful nod follows. Apparently everyone's okay with interdimensional mental travel. Then come the confessionals. Not loud ones like earlier, these are whispers. Whispers that curl like steam and drift across the water. "I once told my chickens my secret," someone murmurs. "I talk to bread before I bake it," whispers another. "I pretended to read Latin for 7 years," a man confesses. "Still do. I think my basil plant judges me." No one reacts. No one mocks. The bathhouse absorbs it all like a sponge of forgiveness. And you begin to whisper too. Maybe it's the heat. Maybe it's the fig mist someone keeps puffing into the air. But you find yourself saying things you didn't expect to say out loud. "I'm afraid of sheep," you admit quietly. They stare too much. A hand pats your shoulder. We all have our woolly demons. You smile and let your forehead fall gently against the edge of the tub. It feels like a damp cloud. The room hums with a warmth that goes beyond temperature. It's cozy, it's kind, it's the safest place you've ever soaked in silence, with a nun, a guard, and a former tax collector who now sells emotionally confusing lozenges. But just as you're drifting into what can only be described as boiled serenity, a quiet voice cuts through. "You know," says the fig leaf woman from earlier, "last time we were this quiet, someone found a secret room." You raise your eyebrows. Behind that tile, she whispers, pointing to a slightly wobbly piece of wall. There was a door, and behind it, a whisper library. Your mouth opens to question that, but she's already gliding away, her towel flapping like a slightly damp cape. And just like that, your thoughts turn to hidden rooms, mysterious scrolls, and the sort of secrets that only the most silent bathers can uncover. Secrets that might just be tucked behind a loose tile, half forgotten by time soap, and a little too much lavender oil. You stare at the tile. It does look slightly off-kilter, not dramatically, just enough to suggest that someone somewhere had leaned on it while adjusting their loofah and accidentally discovered a passage to enlightenment. Or mildew, possibly both. You glance around. The night soakers remain blissfully unaware, or perhaps politely pretending not to notice your growing curiosity. That's part of the bathhouse code. Don't stare, don't splash, and absolutely don't comment when someone's clearly thinking about opening a possibly haunted tile. You edge closer. Your toe touches the tile. Nothing happens. Then with all the stealth of a soggy cat, you reach forward, press gently, and the tile shifts. Just a little. Enough for a soft, hollow clunk to echo behind it. You freeze. Someone clears their throat. You look up. The nun smiles at you and mouths, "Do it." Peer pressure, but wholly. With a final glance back, you push harder. The tile gives way, swinging open to reveal Not a room, not a treasure, but a bucket-sized alcove lined with damp scrolls, old rags and a small wooden sign that reads The Secret Soap Society. You blink. Inside a scribbled note. Shh. If you can read this, welcome. Please return the mint soap. You know who you are. It's part secret society, part passive-aggressive message board. Glorious. You reach inside and find a scroll. It's mushy, but readable. The ink has run in places, making the handwriting look like it's been gently weeping. Still you make out the words. Meeting notes. Quiet tub division. Topic 1. Should fig leaf headbands be mandatory? Topic 2. Whose towel keeps disappearing and is it deliberate? Topic 3. Discuss the ethics of eavesdropping on monks. Below that is a tiny damp doodle of a very muscular sponge flexing. You return the scroll and suddenly realise these people, these whispering, wrinkled wonders, have been cataloguing bathhouse secrets, the kind that don't fit into day conversations or polite towel exchanges, the kind that only come out when the moon is high, the soap is soft, and your pores are alarmingly honest. You grab a bath ladle, your torch, your weapon, your slightly warped spoon, and begin your own whispered exploration. Not of the secret room, that's just an alcove, but of the bathhouse itself now seen with new eyes. Because you now understand something, this place is alive with stories. Take, for example, the bathhouse bouncer. Yes, he exists. No, he's not muscled like a knight or armoured like a guard. He's thin, twitchy, and walks like he's always lost a bet, but he sees everything. Too much splashing. He appears. Towel thievery. He is vengeance. Foot on the rim of the tub, he tuts louder than a mother with 3 kids, and a fresh stain on her linens. He doesn't say much, but when he does, it's devastating. Once a man tried to argue for more bubbles. The bouncer simply replied, "You haven't earned them." The man wept. The bubbles retreated. Balance was restored. And then there's the bucket boy. Oh, the bucket boy. He is chaos in sandals. Part servant, part oracle. He carries buckets not just of water, but of information. He knows who bathed twice this week. He knows who's using their cousin's name to get extra towel privileges. He once claimed to know who'd win the next village bake-off. He was right. Twice. You see him now, skulking through the steam, eyes narrowed, bucket slightly tilted, as if listening to it. He stops next to you. "The scrolls miss you already," he whispers, then walks away like he'd just dropped a prophecy and a wet sponge in your lap. Historians still argue whether bathhouse roles like the bouncer and bucket boy were real, or simply evolved out of communal boredom and steam-induced theatrics. Either way, they're essential, because without order there is only chaos and toe fungus. You watch as a minor dispute begins over towel ownership. 2 women, 1 towel, identical embroidery. Tensions rise. The bouncer appears. He looks once at the towel, once at each woman, then points at a third person entirely and says, "You've been sitting on it, eh? So it." Pause. Closed. A round of appreciative sighs follows. The accused mutters, "I thought it was warm." Order re-established, the bathhouse slips back into its equilibrium. And you begin to understand the layers, the roles, the unspoken rules. Like the rule of mutual rinsing. If someone pours water over your back, you owe them a secret. It can be small, "I don't like pears," or scandalous, "I once wooed a noblewoman using only a limerick and a jar of jam." Doesn't matter. The exchange must be made. Then there's the rule of stealth. Staring, you can observe someone's tattoo mole or suspicious scar, but only in 2-second glances. Any longer, and you're obligated to offer a compliment or a plausible excuse. Like, "I thought you were my cousin," from a distance, in fog. The bucket boy has his own rule. Never trust someone whose soap floats but smells like onions. He refuses to explain it. Everyone just nods like that makes perfect sense. And slowly it begins to click. You've become part of something, a rhythm, a pattern, a slightly damp ballet of whispers and rituals and foot scrubs with inexplicably profound meaning. And just as you're adjusting your towel into what you now recognize as the contemplative knot, you hear it. A splash, a gasp, a whisper louder than the rest. Someone just found the missing sandal of St. Gertrude. The bathhouse erupts politely, and you're swept into the latest mystery, swept right into the sandals, saints and scandal. The announcement echoes through the bathhouse like a gossip-powered cannonball. The sandal of St. Gertrude, someone repeats with the reverence, normally reserved for relics, royalty, or very good cheese. You didn't even know St. Gertrude wore sandals. You're pretty sure most saints went barefoot for humility. But that doesn't matter now because someone just pulled an old leather toe-curled semi-holy slipper out of the rinse bucket, and the entire bathhouse is losing its collective loofah. The crowd forms fast. You're pressed between a woman smelling of thyme and what you suspect is the village beekeeper. Everyone is murmuring, theorizing, speculating. Some are just here because they heard there were free figs. The sandal itself is underwhelming. It's waterlogged, misshapen, and has a smell that can only be described as historically chewy. But in this moment, it's sacred. It's a conversation starter. It's a mystery wrapped in fungus. A local historian, self-declared, naturally steps forward, adjusts his towel like a sash and declares, if this truly belonged to St. Gertrude, it would explain the miraculous, foot-shaped burn mark in the dry room. A collective ooh rises. Then the bathhouse theologian. Yes, that's a thing, pipes up, quoting something about holy footwear and divine toe alignment. He gestures toward the sandal with such passion that he nearly flings a petal into someone's eye. Of course, debate ensues. One woman insists it's just a shoe. Another says it once cured her uncle's gout. A third claims the sandal whispered to her, quietly, in Latin. You watch as a monk tries to bless the sandal, only to slip and accidentally perform a full-bodied baptism on the man holding it. It's fine, someone says. Gertrude loved dramatic gestures. Someone brings out an old scroll, presumably from the Whisper library you found earlier. On it is a crude drawing of a foot. That's her left one, the scroll owner proclaims. She was known for her pointy middle toe. You try not to look directly at the sandal, which suddenly seems accusatory. And then the bouncer speaks. Let's be clear, he says, towel cinched with terrifying precision. If this is her sandal, we treat it with respect. No wearing it, no licking it, no trading it for fig salve. 3 people silently put fig salve back in their baskets. Meanwhile, the bucket boy is making his own inquiries, mostly by sniffing the sandal, holding it to his ear, and declaring, she walked a lot. A helpful observation, if nothing else. Historians still argue whether saints' relics in public bathhouses were actually revered or simply rebranded, lost and found items. But for now, this sandal is royalty. And like royalty, it comes with drama. 2 bathgoers, both claiming distant, unrelated ties to St. Gertrude's neighbour's goat, argue over who gets to store the sandal overnight. A heated debate of lineage, piety, and fungal handling rights ensues. Eventually, the sandal is placed gently into a cedar box, lined with herbs, and a single goose feather. Why the goose feather? No one knows, but it feels ceremonial. The sandal situation may be resolved, but the whispers haven't died down. Now the conversation shifts to other bathhouse mysteries. Remember the time someone found a hairpin in the shape of a griffin? Wasn't that just a very squashed spoon? No, that was the unicorn spoon. Totally different vibe. The bathhouse, it turns out, is a treasure trove. Lost items, strange finds, alleged relics, all just waiting to be rediscovered between someone's heel and a heat crack in the tile. A rumour starts about a hidden loofah forged from the beard hairs of a saint. Another person swears they saw a soap bar shaped like the Virgin Mary. You're pretty sure it was just melted goat's milk. But at this point, everything is spiritual, if enough people squint. And then, because bathhouses are nothing if not full circle, someone tries on the sandal. They claim to feel lighter, like my sins were peeled away. Someone nearby says, that might just be trench foot. Either way, the crowd is impressed. The sandal is passed around reverently. You're offered a turn. You hesitate. Part of you wants to participate in history. Another part of you remembers how long that sandal was in a communal rinse bucket. You opt to touch it with your pinky. Gently. Just enough to say, yes, I too have brushed history's foot. It feels damp. And as the sandal is returned to its box, a hush falls. Not solemn, just satisfied, the kind of silence that follows good drama and warm water. People return to their soaking, their fig paste facials, their ongoing conversation about whether scrubbing clockwise increases luck or just makes you dizzy. The bathhouse breathes again, calm and fragrant. You lean back, water lapping at your shoulders, and hear someone near the herbal bench whisper, Imagine what else is hidden in these walls. The question lingers, soaking into the stone, ready to bubble up again. But not tonight. Tonight, it's time to dry off. The hour grows late, and as the steam thins, the bathhouse prepares for slumber. Slumber that arrives not with yawns, but with soft towels, whispered good nights, and a final satisfying splash. The bathhouse has entered its gentlest phase. The tubs no longer ripple with debates or riddles. The foot buckets have been emptied. Even the bucket boy is curled up on a bench, using a warm sponge as a pillow, and snoring in perfect rhythm with the drip of the ceiling. You, towel-draped and thoroughly steamed, are drying your ankles with the kind of reverence usually reserved for holy relics. Your fingers are wrinkled, your hair smells like every herb in the village, and your soul a little lighter, a little pruned, and strangely joyful. People move more slowly now, like sleepwalkers in a lavender-scented dream. Someone is humming a lullaby or a love song, maybe just something about boiled beets, it's hard to tell. The important thing is it's soft. Everything is soft now. Even the bathhouse creaks differently in this hour, like it's exhaling after a long day of absorbing secrets, laughter, and a truly excessive number of fig-based skincare routines. In the far corner, the monk who had been silently meditating all evening now opens one eye and gently asks the nun, "Did we sin too softly today?" She shrugs. "Maybe tomorrow we'll try gossiping about that new apothecary." He looks like he hides snakes in his boots. Their voices fade, not a conversation, just the last embers of steam speak flickering out. You slip your feet into your sandals, blessedly, not saintly, and join the slow exodus of bath-goers heading toward the changing room. One man stops at the doorway and bows to the room. You're not sure if he's thanking the bathhouse or just stretching his back. Either way, it feels right. As you reach for your robe, a soft voice beside you murmurs, "Did you hear about the midnight tub?" You turn eyes wide. She grins. "Just kidding, that one's for the ducks." Of course it is. Historians still argue whether bathhouses served as sanctuaries or social experiments, or perhaps as this long, meandering, magical evening has shown you, they were simply both. They were places where people showed up fully as themselves, awkward, odd, soft, scrubbed, and wonderfully deeply human. And that's the story, or at least one story, because tomorrow someone will find a mysterious sock in the rinse basin and claim it once belonged to a Hungarian prince. Someone will invent a new exfoliating chant. Someone will cry into a mint leaf and find peace. And someone, maybe you, will return, because once you've soaked in stories, there's no going back to dry conversations. Now the bathhouse dims. The last candle flickers. A gentle breeze moves through the open slats, carrying with it the scent of time and secrets. The stone holds warmth. The water still whispers. The door creaks shut with a sleepy sigh. So now, with every tale told and every toe wrinkled just so, let your body relax a little deeper. Feel the lingering warmth of the bathhouse around you, like you're still there, nestled in steam, and soft laughter surrounded by old stones and even older stories. The air is thick with herbs and hushes. Your towel is snug around your shoulders. Your eyes grow heavy, not from exhaustion, but from peace. The kind of peace that comes from being in a place where no one rushes, nothing stings, and even the fig paste feels profound. Outside, the moon watches quietly. The village sleeps. But in the heart of the old stone bathhouse, somewhere between the benches and the buckets, a faint ripple stirs, gentle, familiar. A memory, perhaps, or just one more whisper shared between the stones. You are part of it now, a name in the mist, a story in the steam. Let that thought carry you as you drift off. Let the echoes of laughter and the soft splashes lull you. Because here in this shared space of warmth and whimsy, rest isn't just allowed, it's sacred. Good night, dear bather. The bathhouse will be waiting.